Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 House elections and I'll be ranking the 10 seats that I think are most likely to flip. So I just want to say I'm not accounting for court redraws, whether that be in Wisconsin, New York, Alabama, or Louisiana, Carolina. We're likely going to see some new maps come in 2024 that could benefit either the Republicans or the Democrats. For now, we're just going to, just for the fun of it, assume current district makeup. The only seats that are on this list that I made are that could be overturned by court are in New York, and I think right now that's kind of a 50-50. So I'm not going to bet on New York overturning just yet or changing their maps just for now. We're just going to keep with their current districts. So we're going to start out in New York, like I said, with the 22nd congressional district. This is upstate, right in the middle there. And in 2022, it did elect a Republican, but pretty narrowly, only by about a point. And the Democrats could have easily won here had they had just slightly better turnout in the city of Syracuse, which really was what killed them here. And Brandon Williams, the Republican incumbent, he's a good incumbent, but he did underperform Lee Zeldin by a couple of points. So if he doesn't, I don't think he'll underperform Trump, but Trump lost the seat by 7 in 2020, could lose it by more next time. So he'll need to overperform by a lot more than he did in 2022 to win. And it's possible, but it's, to me, kind of a red flag for Republicans that they don't have that great of an incumbent in the seat. So kind of a wave baby to me, kind of like a Joe Cunningham or a Kendra Horn. If you know who those people are, they were Democrats who won in 2018 then lost in 2020. So I would say it's kind of an example of that early on. The next seat we're going to go to is in Nebraska, the 2nd congressional district there. Incumbent Republican Don Bacon only won by 2%. As you can see, that was a pretty close race. In 2020, he won a Biden +7 district by 4 because he ran against a terrible Democrat. The Democrats put up a much better candidate this time in Tony Vargas, and I would say he did a pretty good job. He only lost by 2 in a seat. Pillen won by a point. So Don Bacon has historically overperformed by a lot. He only outperformed the Republican gubernatorial nominee by a point. So I think his reign is coming to an end here. He's been an impressive incumbent for a while. He's no wave baby. He's won competitive elections a lot. And his new seat is still a Biden seat, but at the end of the day, I think presidential partisanship and polarization, when Biden likely wins a seat by 8 or 9 next year, I think that dooms him. I think he loses by just under 2%. So that, to me, is another potential flip. That's in our top 10. Now, number 8, that is New York's 19th district, going back to the Northeast for this one. And the 19th district is directly south of the 22nd. That is Mark Molinaro's seat. And Mark Molinaro, he's a good candidate. In 2018, he did do pretty well in the governor's race against Andrew Cuomo, but he's, I'd say, fallen off a little bit since then. He lost the special election to Pat Ryan in August, and he had a fine showing against Josh Riley, but he underperformed Zeldin by over 5%, which he was actually one of the worst Republicans in the state of New York in terms of how they performed relative to Lee Zeldin. So he, I would say, is probably in a little bit of trouble here, considering he did not do that well in 2022 once you actually look at a statewide partisanship. In addition to that, Josh Riley's running again, I believe, and he did a pretty good job. He was a good opponent. So I'm going to say that's number 8. Going over to number 7, we have the West Coast, California's 41st district in the suburbs of Los Angeles. This is Ken Calvert's seat. Calvert won by 4% in 2022, but he was expected to win by double that. He was really not contested by the Democrats, and Will Rawlins, his opponent, is running again. He's a very good candidate, and I would say this seat, to me, is probably in the close to the lean Democrat column at this point in time. Calvert's not a good incumbent, and Rawlins did really well. Again, Democrats only won the governorship by 19, and Newsom lost the seat by almost double digits, and Rawlins came within 4 points of beating Ken Calvert. So I'm going to say this seat is probably going to flip blue. Rawlins running again against Ken Calvert is going to really help Democrats. And unless Biden bombs statewide, wins by only 19 or 20, I think this seat's going to flip. Now we're going to go back to New York. Kind of, as you can see, the common trend here is Republican wave babies. In New York, we're going to go to the 4th district, which is actually the bluest seat Republicans won this year. Anthony D'Esposito beat Laura Gillen, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She lost by 4. This is a seat kind of at the beginning of Long Island, got a little bit of the city itself in there. But the problem for Republicans in this seat is that Anthony D'Esposito he's a good incumbent. He had a really impressive, again, he won a Biden +14 seats. You can't take away from how impressive that was. But again, like I've said, relative to Lee Zeldin, almost every Republican underperformed. And I'm just going to be pretty clear here. I think that a lot of the results Republicans got in New York last year they got really lucky just because of how well Zeldin did and how de-energized Democrats were. So a Biden plus 14 seat, maybe Despacito can hold on, but he'll have to win on a presidential ballot a super blue district that he underperformed the gubernatorial candidate in last year. So I don't want to take away from his strength. Winning a Biden plus 14 seat as a Republican, no matter what the circumstances, is impressive, but presidential year, I think is going to hurt a lot of Republicans. So that is another potential flip for me. Now, next up on our list at number 5, staying in New York, the 17th district. This is a more suburban seat. It's kind of not really upstate, but it's kind of approaching upstate. I would say, just as someone who lives in the East Coast, I'd say upstate's kind of more starts over here. Once you guys really get past a couple minutes past Poughkeepsie, I'd say that's where it starts. But either way, this is not upstate. This is more northwest Chester County. And it is a pretty swingy seat. I could see Lawler holding on. He's a good incumbent. But again, Sean Patrick Mullin was really disliked. He carpet-bagged into this seat and just did not have a big base there. Lawler was a state assemblyman. He did pretty well in his district. So I think 2022 is a good chance for Republicans to win it, especially with Lee Zeldin carrying it by 3% of the top of the ticket. So I'm going to say that Lawler is a chance, but it's a Biden plus 11 seat, I think. And that's going to really, really be harder for Lawler to overcome, especially when you remember that in 2024, Biden, this is a left-running area. This seat got 5 or 6 points bluer between 2016 and 2020. I think maybe even more than that. If Biden wins it by 15, it's probably game over for Lawler because he only outperformed Trump by 11.5. So if he does that again, he'll probably lose by a little bit. Now, that is, I believe, our second to last New York seat. So we're going to have a lot of New York seats in this video, but we're going to go in the meantime over to Arizona, which we haven't gotten to yet. We're going to go in the first district. That is north of Phoenix. It's a very suburban seat that re-elected Republican incumbent David Schweikert by just under a percentage point in 2022. And this was a really impressive performance for Democrats because Jevin Hodge received no funding. Schweikert was a pretty good incumbent, and Hodge came within 0.8% of beating him. So that's a good, I would say, a good performance from Hodge. I know he underperformed Mark Kelly, which does sting a little bit. He obviously is not the perfect candidate, but I think with more funding against a decent Republican incumbent, this seat could easily flip, and especially because Biden will likely carry it by a good amount at the top of the ticket as well. I think that'll drag Hodge over the finish line, even if it's only by 2 or 3 points. So that is our number 4. Our number 3, we're going to go to California, the 22nd district. That is a number 3 on our list. This is obviously been a battleground for the past 3 election cycles. Democrats won it in 2018, Republicans won it in 2020, held on to it in 2022. And as you can see here, this is actually a very low turnout seat in 2022. Only about 101,000 votes were cast here. And if you go to even the most recent we talked about, we saw, 361K votes? So this seat cast 3 times as little votes, more than that, compared to any other district. Go to the Bay Area, or not the Bay Area, but the more coastal region of California or the Bay Area, significantly more votes cast. But this is a seat that really had bad turnout in 2022. We saw Rudy Salas did pretty well with the voters he was able to turn out, but because there was such atrocious turnout in the Central Valley, especially with Hispanic voters that would have normally preferred Democrats, that's what cost Salas the race. The consensus is that if you reran this race under 2020 partisanship, Salas would have won by 9 points. So I don't think he'll win by that much, but I think that he will win probably by maybe 3 or 4, especially with Biden on the ballot. And again, Biden's not really, this isn't a seat that was good for Biden either. He actually did worse here than Hillary Clinton, but it's still a Biden plus 13 district, and I think he'll win it by 11. And I think that'll be enough to get Rudy Salas. Because again, Salas outperformed Newsom, and he's running against a really good incumbent. So Biden wins it by 11, Salas on the ticket. I think that's enough to get that seat to flip by a decent amount. 2 seats left. We're going to go back to New York. This is obviously, I think, one a lot of you were expecting. George Santos, who was going to get primaried, by the way. I'd be shocked if he makes it past the primary. But if he does somehow, it's probably safe Democrat. If he doesn't, it's still probably in the likely D column and voted for Biden by 12 points, I think. I'm kind of forgetting. I think maybe, or no, sorry, it was Biden plus 8. I don't know why I forgot that. But the seat voted for Biden by 8%. And again, Santos did win by 8, but again, he underperformed Lee Zeldin by a little bit. And it's fair to note that this district would likely, a turn increase would likely help Democrats here with voters of color. And with that happening with a presidential election on the ballot, dooms Republicans here. And if Santos gets it either way, they're going to lose because Santos obviously is now, I believe, a convicted criminal, and he's obviously had a really rough first year in Congress. So that seat is our final New York seat. I think most of you guys were expecting that. And now the number one seat most likely to flip, we're going to return back to California. This is our third time here. Directly north of the 22nd is California 13. This seat voted for Joe Biden by 9% in 2020, and it elected a Republican by 600 votes. And obviously that was a very close election. But Adam Gray, I think, is actually a pretty decent candidate. He outran Newsom by, I think, 5 or 6 points. Newsom lost this district by a good amount. And again, the problem for Republicans here is that they won most of these seats because they had a turnout advantage. White voters turned out, Hispanic voters did not, and that's why they won a lot of these seats in the Central Valley in California, and a lot of seats in other states too. So with increased Hispanic turnout, or just again, Democrats lost the seat by 600 votes. So with increased Hispanic turnout, just slightly better performances with Biden on the ballot, dragging Democrats up across the ticket, I think this seat probably flips by a good amount. Classic wave baby. John Duarte, when I say wave baby, I'm not dismissing the credentials of the candidate. John Duarte did very well in his seat. He won a Biden +9 district, and that's impressive. But at the end of the day, wave babies are wave babies. We have them every year. 2018, like I said, you had Joe Cunningham in South Carolina, Kendra Horton in Oklahoma, Ben McAdams in Utah, Abby Finkenauer in Iowa. And they win one election. They have a good showing. They are kind of hyped up, and they lose. So that's, I think, what's going to happen with a lot of these Republican incumbents, and it's kind of the downside of having a wave year, because the next year you're kind of for a reality check. So that's the map. These are as of right now, the seats that I think are most likely to flip top 10. So again, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let me know what you think I missed or should have added, and I'll see you all in the next one.